Greetings everybody, I'm obviously Jesus, and welcome to the second Patreon video for the month of June 2017. As always, a big thank you to all my patrons, new and old, for making this possible and allowing me to earn money through basically just doing my own thing and talking about what you want me to talk about in the realms of philosophy and my personal life. So, without further ado, I want to get into today's video, which is actually going to be a little bit of a circle back to a video that I made. I think it was it the first or second video? The second video I made for Patreon. So 1 month ago, I want to mark the month anniversary by circling back to that antinatalism video that I made and talking about some points that one of my commenters, my patron commenters, made in response to that video, talking about the Nietzschean idea that what does not kill you makes you stronger, and that antinatalism is therefore not necessarily desirable because of that. So without further ado, I'll read the comment that inspired me to do this, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Today's video is probably not going to be as long as usual videos. I have limited time shooting this. I'm off to do some shit after this that I won't be home to shoot a longer version of this. So today's video is going to be a little bit shorter than usual, but I still think I can do a pretty good dissection of the topic at hand in a fairly limited time scope. So, I'm obviously Jesus. Welcome to Antinatalism, Part 2, motherfucker. Oh my god, just kill me now. Alright, this comment that I'm going to rebut comes from Jesse S. I wrote it down here so I won't forget it. He says, I'm not sure that this being antinatalism, the video I made before, which of course you want to go watch if you want to understand this video, I'm not sure if this is a great application of utilitarianism, to be honest. At least from a Nietzschean view, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and learning from painful mistakes sort of makes the pain-pleasure dichotomy much more complicated. If you're a fan of Nassim Taleb, organic things that experience stress become much more robust and anti-fragile as long as it isn't overwhelming, and is how we learn and expand our knowledge of the world. Risk isn't necessarily bad, and how you structure your system can change the effects of the downside. So, I kind of agree with this to some extent, but I do so with some very big caveats, and that's what we're going to talk about today. And the biggest rebuttal that I want to make to this point is simply that the idea that every single person can just simply restructure a system or create some kind of system to better manage incoming random events, which is what Nassim Taleb, the philosopher and the economist that this person was referencing, talks about, is, you know, that's a big luxury. And that's what I want to hammer home right here, because it is an immense luxury to be able to restructure your life with the freedom of, you know, movement and the freedom of choice that you need to have in order to make sure that you can always handle what comes at you and manage your exposure to these uncertain and possibly traumatic events. And, you know, there's no way you can handle all the mechanics of your life. Nassim Taleb comes from the world of finance. He's an economist. You know, so this guy is dealing with systems, or at least at the very beginning, he deals in his work with systems about money. And these are big corporations that have a lot of money, and you can deal with money in a lot more finite ways than you can your entire life. Money, you can, you know, diversify or you cannot diversify your funds. Nassim Taleb actually argues for a barbell idea, which instead of holding in the middle, you either do extremely safe investments or extremely risky investments, rather than standing in the middle, because, you know, you can't really measure the idea of medium risk that accurately, you know, in terms of finance. So you might as well either go for extremely safe and weigh a lot of your money on the extremely safe side, or, you know, throw your money in an extremely risky investment rather than just sit in the middle and possibly stagnate. So what Nassim Taleb talks about is not necessarily applicable, I think, to people's individual lives, because there's just so much more control needed over the systems of life than there is of, you know, certain financial systems when it comes to a personal or a corporation's money management. So basically, what I'm saying is that it is an extreme luxury to be able to control all the circumstances that you would need to control in your life to be able to apply this philosophy of, you know, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Now, obviously, I owe a great debt to Friedrich Nietzsche. I owe him some, you know, absolute debt over basically my philosophy of life being something that's derived from him and a few other philosophers that I've read in my time on this earth. So I owe him a great debt, but I think, honestly, to take what doesn't kill you makes you stronger as a literal, always applicable thing is a little bit like taking some, Bible verses without metaphor and interpreting them literally. The phrase, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, is a phrase that doesn't always apply. I don't think Nietzsche would contend that his syphilis made him a stronger person. Although I suppose it did end up killing him. So anyway, there's a lot of things that don't make you stronger even though they don't kill you. Most of them being physical afflictions. Like if you lose an arm, it's not going to make you any physically stronger. You might become a more adept person at doing certain things in certain ways if you lose an arm. And you might say that mentally speaking you're stronger because you have to think about doing different things in different ways, but to me that kind of seems like a reach. To me it seems like, on the whole, if you lose an arm, even if you have to become more adept in certain other ways and using your other 3 remaining limbs, 4 if you count the other one, but seriously, if you become more adept, I don't think you become net stronger. If you understand my meaning. I don't think that you've gained anything, you've just shifted your existing strength into, doing something with what you have. So I don't think that makes you stronger, it just makes you equally strong, but different, if not less strong, because you still have lost something, and human body isn't meant to, it isn't built or designed, I use that term loosely. The human body isn't meant to function with 3 limbs, so you're doing your best, but you're not necessarily stronger. And maybe that's, too literal of an interpretation. What doesn't kill you being physically maimed? Maybe we can look at it some other way. Let's say, look at it in terms of something more abstract, like racial oppression. There are racial groups in this country, the United States, that have been oppressed for a very, very long time. And while it has made them tight-knit and insular, and they have a certain degree of strength in that way, and you might be able to say that, these racial groups, like African Americans or Hispanics, have become stronger by having to, be galvanized together via, trying to, overcome this oppression together. I don't think that you could really argue that in an objective way they're stronger, though, because the whole thing about racial oppression is that these racial groups don't have access to the same systems that white people do, that white people have basically a systemic bias in their favor that affects them basically in all areas of their life passively as you go. So I don't think that, while racial groups have a certain sort of tight-knit strength, I don't think that objectively they're stronger, because that's the whole point of identifying oppression, because they're still not as strong as white people and their systemic bias. So, years and years and decades and possibly hundreds of years of oppression have not made these racial groups, at least in terms of, tangible systems, haven't made them stronger either. So I don't think that either in a physical or in an abstract sense, what kills you doesn't always make you stronger. And the point I'm trying to make with that example is that there are external factors completely outside of the control of the person who is being not killed in this situation, the person who supposedly is becoming stronger. But there are external factors that mitigate any person's ability to grow and change and respond positively to these traumatic events, these, as Nassim Taleb would call them, black swan events, these events that come into your life and either are extremely good or extremely bad. And responding to the extremely bad ones is not something you can always control. Sometimes you don't have the mental tools to do it. Sometimes you don't have the upbringing that would give you the experience to. Sometimes it just simply comes down to finances. Sometimes you're not the right race. Sometimes you're not the right, sometimes you just don't have the things that you need to turn a bad experience into a good experience. So to simply say that we should procreate and have children and create generation upon generation of children simply because they could potentially learn from mistakes is a bit foolish, I think, because it presupposes erroneously in many cases, the idea that we have the tools to learn from our mistakes. Some people are doomed to repeat their mistakes just in their lives, and to have, we see it every day with alcoholism and other forms of substance abuse. Just that one example alone should show you. I mean, alcoholism isn't necessarily going to kill a lot of people. I mean, it does, but, it's not going to kill everybody who's an alcoholic, but, it's not making them stronger. It's not galvanizing them. It's not making them a lot, a lot more, it's not giving them any more fortitude, really. So to say that that person should procreate and have children and potentially pass on that addiction gene, because there is a genetic component to addiction, as well as a social one, to say that that person should have children is a bit foolish, because your mistakes, if you don't have the tools to correct them and nobody steps in, if you don't have a support network, if you don't have, finances to go to rehab in that situation, that mistake is potentially going to affect generations upon generations down the line until somebody stops it. Because, there are external circumstances that prevent what doesn't kill you from making you stronger. And that's simply what I wanted to say in this video, because the idea that you can take any bad experience and learn from it is a bit ridiculous when it comes to you have to have so much stuff in place that you might take for granted in order to take your mistake and learn from it. You have to even be able to identify it's a mistake. People who are addicted to drugs don't think it's a mistake. They think it's good. It's not every day you find a drug addict who knows they're an addict. And you have people all the time. You see it in media. You see it in anything that reflects society. That you have people who don't even understand that they're in trouble. So to procreate presupposes that you're always going to have the tools to conquer these mistakes and turn them into positive experiences and gain something from them, and that is obviously, if you look around in the world, not the case. And I want to tie this finally back into antinatalism by talking about how we deal with this mathematically. And it's funny that Nassim Taleb, who Jesse mentioned, is a financial advisor, or that he deals with probabilities and such so often, because he talks about his barbell. He talks about his barbell theory, where you should pursue extremes and never go in the middle, and how this applies to both finance and life. If you wanted to look at antinatalism is simply applying the safe end of the barbell, honestly. Antinatalism is basically a mathematical choice, because when you deal with antinatalism, the only possible way to ensure that your children have no pain in their lives is to not have them at all. The idea that pain can be formative is a luxury, and that is basically my statement here at the end of this video. Pain being formative is a luxury afforded by chance, by economic situation, by your upbringing and your parents, by a lot of things that a lot of people simply don't have. The only absolute is that less pain is good. That is the only absolute that holds true for all people at all times. Even if you have to have pain to learn and to have this formative experience, that is, again, a luxury, and is still probably secondary to having no pain at all. You'd still prefer to have no pain. You can simply take the pain that you have, if you're lucky, and turn it into a formative experience. So again, while pain being formative is a luxury, less pain being good is an absolute. And that is why I believe antinatalism is a good application of utilitarianism, because it's the only thing that deals with absolutes and doesn't rely on the absolute, complete luck of the draw luxury that is having systems in place to catch you when you fall and keep your pain from becoming overwhelming. I'm obviously Jesus. Thank you, Jesse, for your response. If you want to respond again, maybe I'll make a third video on antinatalism. I don't know. But seriously, I love having this kind of dialogue between myself and my patrons and subscribers. So just give me your thoughts in the comments section of this, or the Patreon post, or YouTube, or what have you. So I'm obviously Jesus. I'm off to go see some concerts and shit. I will talk to you later, and bye-bye.